Hello, and welcome to another episode of Retrospective Cinema, a podcast wherein we'll endeavor week after week to see the full filmographies of chosen directors. We'll interpret, critique, and discuss. I'm your co-host, Ryan Saylor.
And I am your other co-host, Annie Morell. And today we'll be continuing our discussion of Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography with the film Boogie Nights. Here's a clip.
I want it so we can cut glass, like razor sharp.
Razor sharp, right?
Yeah, well, when I close my eyes, I see this thing. It's like this big sign. And the name is in like bright blue neon lights with like purple outline. And this name is just so bright and so sharp that the sign, it just blows up because the name is just so powerful. It says Dirt Digger.
So far on this podcast, we've tried to see the short films and different things between every feature release. This week, the only thing Paul Thomas Anderson did between Hard Eight and Boogie Nights was a music video for the artist Michael Penn, who scored Hard Eight, which we talked about. We both liked that score. And did also score Boogie Nights, but I think it's a little less impactful due to all of the licensed pop music.
A lot of pop music, yeah.
Anyway, as a favor to him, he did a music video, and we kind of debated talking about it, but I think there is enough there that we'll start there. So we both watched Michael Penn's Try ahead of Boogie Nights. And what'd you think of that music video?
I feel like he got paid in like gear and for this, or I don't know what the progression of this was, but I liked it, I guess, to actually answer your question. Yeah, it feels like there's, it's this continuous shot. Not really. There are a couple times where he clearly like cut it together of, Michael Penn singing in a hallway, kind of going down or being rolled at a certain point through these different really weird scenes that I still don't quite know what was going on in them. A little Philip Seymour Hoffman cameo in there. That was cool.
Yeah, and a couple others from the cast as well.
Oh, really?
Thomas Jane and Melora Walters, who are both in Boogie Nights, played small parts in the video. I couldn't really tell you where because we both watched a very low-res Vivo stream on YouTube from back when that was the way to watch music videos, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously the music video came out over a decade before. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't catch that. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I thought it was very neat. I feel a little bad for Michael Penn. This is, extra textual, obviously, but I was looking for more info on the music video after seeing it. And the Wikipedia article, there isn't a Wikipedia article for the music video, but there is for the album, and it has a subheading on the music video. So I will read you, for the full experience, I'm going to read you the entirety of what Wikipedia has to say about the album, and then I will jump to the music video. You ready for this?
Oh, no.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Resigned is a 1997 album by singer-songwriter Michael Penn. Try music video. All anyone cares about from this album is apparently this video that Paul Thomas Anderson directed, which is all, in all fairness, how we came across it as well. But I do feel a little bad for Michael Penn here.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the song. Hadn't heard his music prior to this, so yeah. I sorry to Michael Penn. I'm a new fan, maybe.
There you go. So Paul Thomas Anderson and Michael Penn were friends. Michael Penn actually plays also Nick in Boogie Nights. He's the guy that gets to record Dirk's great vocals later in the movie. And then Paul Thomas Anderson recorded this video for him. It is a really neat video. You'd mentioned that it's not really one take. According to the internet, it is, but I agree with you. There's a couple whip pans that make it seem like it's what you would do to hide an edit, but according to everything I read, it is one take, but I agree with you that it doesn't look like it is. If it is, they put in unnecessary whip pans.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
There you go. Anyway, as for the video, it has enough. We decided it was actually worth talking about. So we first get this man going down this hallway, getting pulled down this hallway, which also suits the lyrics. He talks about not trying. despite the track being named Try, he wants to do quite the opposite. And then he goes through a series of scenes that were hard to interpret or just visually due to the currently available streaming quality. But he first ends up in what we decided was a office of sorts, and he's going through his daily life, or, you know, the average type of life. He ends up in maybe a two-legged race. He goes down a school hallway where he's shot repeatedly. And then finally he ends up in a scene with several old people waving goodbye. And that ends the video. So what do you make of all these scenes, and what's going on here?
Well, if they were ordered a little bit differently, I would just assume it's like him going through his life, because if the school was first,
right,
and then it was like the the people in the business suits, the office, and three-legged race somewhere in there, and then the old people, that would make sense, and then you'd think the end was death. But because they're ordered in the way they are, I don't know. I almost interpreted it more as like maybe going through a relationship. I don't know. I didn't spend a ton of time analyzing this 3-minute music video, to be honest. What did you think?
That was my first thought as well. It was like, okay, is this someone's life? But because they are out of order, and because in the school scene he's killed, unless he survived
Good
that,
point.
I interpreted it as they're all deaths of different types. Like, obviously a school shooting is the most horrible, but maybe just the mindlessness of cubicle work, which we talked about was a big thought process in the 90s last week, is a type of death. The old people waving goodbye, and the only one where this doesn't fit is the high school sequence. But I was reading that shot also is a reference to They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, which I've unfortunately not seen, so there could be context there that I'm missing.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I've only seen the Sex and the City episode called They Shoot Single People, Don't They? So that's my point of reference.
Well,
Don't know if it's related.
could be different. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I like that. And I think also, the lyrics are a little more, it sounds a lot more like a troubled romance.
Sure.
Which is maybe where my interpretation of the visuals comes from. It is where it comes from, not maybe. But yeah, I would say watch it if you want. Kind of a neat little oddity in his career.
Yeah.
And then of course, we'll get there, but now he does a bunch of Haim videos. So I'm excited about that.
We have set a precedent here by talking about this one that we'll talk about all of them. And Paul Thomas Anderson's career actually has a lot of music videos, but I definitely want to talk about Anima when we get to it. So it had to happen. We're true completionists on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I like it. Who knows if the listeners will like it, but yeah, moving on to our main discussion about Boogie Nights, just prefacing with we are a full spoiler podcast and doesn't really need a content warning, but we're talking about porn. It's a movie about the porn industry, so
Sure.
If you don't like that, get out.
Or, depending on your interpretation of the film, if you don't like that, maybe stay.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the continuous shot, or, ostensible continuous shot, maybe not, in Michael Penn's Try. And yeah, he starts using that trademark in this one right off the bat. You have like a 3-minute.
It's so beautiful.
Oh, a gorgeous opening scene. Some cool, 360s. Just every character, practically, all at once, revealed in this opening sequence in the bar. What an upgrade. And a stacked cast immediately. I forgot. There's so many people in this movie. I forgot William H. Macy was in this movie. Forgot about Alfred Molina. Wow, so good.
Yeah, you said upgrade. I assume you're referring to Hard 8 to this.
Yeah, I think the cinematography is a lot more inventive in this one. I will say, so awesome opening shot. There are so many continuous shots that it almost lost its luster for me personally as a gimmick. But I mean, it was still good. I just was like, okay, and we're doing it again.
Well, I think each one is important. I didn't remember how many there are in this film that are very long oneers, but every time one was happening, it either made the viewer get lost in the beauty of it all, or get really stuck in the intensity of it all, or like there was always something going on. So I don't think it was overused, but I could feel that. What I had not remembered is that this is only 1 year after Hard Eight, and to me, night and day on the level of confidence, at least in the filmmaking. We talked about last time that maybe PTA wasn't quite sure how to get from scene to scene in the last one. This is a much harder set of subplots to navigate, and it is done so much better than his previous film, at least in my opinion.
I think overall I agree with you that the transitions between scenes are much better. I think there were a few that I was like, oh, that was abrupt still. So I do see the progression happening, which is really cool. You know, that's kind of why we're doing this, where I think, yeah, he has some very clever transitions, and then some that I was like, okay, he clearly didn't know quite how to do this. Or
to me, the most jarring transition is from the New Year's Eve party to the short remake of the Dirk Diggler story, which I'd forgotten that he does do that in this movie. To me, it worked. Like I was just horrified all over again at that moment, and then I was, laughing along to the comedy of that mockumentary. So
a transition that I did really like kind of early on in the movie is the transition from the audition to his mom. It's like this overlaid image that kind of fades into his mother. Oof. Loved that. And there's also these transitions between the one that I think stood out to me as a less successful or kind of jarring cut was the transition between the mother's abuse, like as he is being kicked out of the house, and Eddie going to Jack's. Not only the actual technical cut of that, but it's clearly the most upsetting moment that he's leaving home. It's this total loss of innocence, and he's being kind of chased out of the house by his fucking awful mom. And then it cuts to him approaching Jack's house, and he's like happy. And to me, initially I was like, okay, he's running away to Jack's house, but then that cut, and I don't even remember if he changes outfits or whatever. It makes it seem like no, time has passed. It's not. Yeah, so it was just very jarring.
I did note the difference in feeling, but I thought that was so intentional, especially later in the film. We see that Dirk has effectively killed, his old self. He goes by his porn name. So I took that moment as kind of where it happens. Like he sees the misery of his old life, and he just chooses to end that. It's just gone. It no longer exists, and now he can be happy with his new life. He hasn't picked his name yet at that point in the plot, but I read it that way, that it is to him it's a whole new life, and that's why it feels so different.
I like that interpretation, and I'm not even really saying that I'm not interpreting it that way. I just felt, especially, it's very confusing to me exactly how far away he is in his small town to LA, because his mom talks about oh, you have to leave so early to get to your job that is at a strip club. Why are you doing that? And I think Jack, when he arrives at the house, is like, oh, came all the way here, rode the bus all the way here, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm picturing a couple hours commute or something. But yeah, that was the one moment that really stuck out to me. Is like, oh, that kind of threw me off a little bit. But I see and hear you and your opinion.
I appreciate your validating words, and I will take them to heart.
Wow.
Yes. So before even he leaves, though, what I didn't think would be a very divisive interpretation, but based on our opening, it might be. I think this film is very anti-porn, for the record. And I think that starts pretty early. Before even Dirk leaves home, when he's just kind of exploring the industry, we immediately see, just all the drug use. We see that Maggie, or Amber Waves, can't see her son. So even when he's just getting a taste, I think this film starts very early on showing all of the downsides of what our character is perceiving as a good life, which I thought was interesting even from a plotting perspective, because we essentially have a there and back again epic like a twist on it here. And this should be the part in the story where everything is perfect, and a lot of it is, but even then there's already cracks, and I mean eventually those really fester.
Yeah, I mean I agree. Obviously it is showing the flaws in the porn industry, especially at that time, because obviously it has evolved quite a bit from the late 70s, early 80s. And I don't know, I really took it more as a almost a like moderation, like everything in moderation kind of message.
Okay.
So you have, you know, fairly early on in the film, like William H. Macy's character, for example, is sort of this unwilling cuck to his wife, who is clearly a porn star. He works in the porn industry. He finds her having sex with another man, and she just kind of acts like it's no big deal. Which, yeah, I mean, I think there's definite commentary on the kind of desensitization that happens, like if you're around sex all the time. And it kind of, his storyline culminates in him killing her lover at the time, who we don't even see, and himself, kind of sort of in the middle of the movie. And to me, that's, his character is an example of, you know, when you are too far into it, when a job becomes more than a job, I guess. And Dirk, you know, Dirk, or Eddie, as he's known in the beginning, finds a family in it. You know, that's kind of the crux of the film, is that
that's true.
He finds a family in it, which I think is great, but does ultimately leave him, you know, as a drug addict near the end. And we'll get more into that. And I don't think that that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be a family. It's a business. It's a job. And yeah, I think once you start making it too much of your life, I guess is how I interpreted it. Then that's when it becomes a problem. And once it stops being treated as an art form, because, you know, there's this whole debate more near the end with Philip Baker Hall's character coming in and kind of touting or singing the praises of video. And Jack really wants to keep shooting on film, but film is expensive. Oh, which does remind me, going back just briefly to our talk about the continuous shots, I think it could be argued that there are so many continuous shots in this. The reason for that is because, like, that they're shooting on film, so they just kind of tell them to continue no matter what, so it's continuous. And kind of the nature of porn is it's all in like one take. I like that. I like it for that, the amount that it's used. Anyway,
so I'm gonna have to jump all around to lay this out there, but I'm pretty confident this isn't me. You know, I've said I have some out there stuff. I think this is the only way to read the film. So if I'm quite curious, you know, to hear otherwise. And I like what you're saying so far. But the film presents, I think the one positive, I think PTA has admiration for the gumption, the drive, and the desire to create something beautiful in the porn chic era, which is where our film starts. We see Burt Reynolds' character genuinely trying to make something good. And I think PTA has admiration for that. And from what you just said, it sounds like you'd agree. But even when we see those films, I mean, the dichotomy between what this man says he's making versus then the clips we get, there's nothing artful going on here. They're pretty bad. And to include that in the film in response to the one thing that it looks like things are going well with, I thought was interesting. And it just builds upon, no one in this movie finds happiness because of the porn. You have characters that do find each other despite the porn, because that's the only people it seems like you can interact with once you're in this industry, at least according to the film, are each other. But Roller Girl finds happiness once she goes back for her GED. Buck finds happiness once he's out of there and gets his own shop. The characters actually like moving on with their life. And yeah, you brought up Macy's character. I can't recall the name of the second. Fully deep in it, like probably the deepest of our characters. Yeah, it succumbs to it and kills himself. And all of our characters are at least damaged in some way. I mean, even like Maggie, Amber Waves, whatever you want to call her, she does become a good mother figure, but she's unable to express that in any reasonable way. It's almost like she can't disconnect the act of sex from motherly love, which is weird and interesting, and it's a whole element of the film that we could try to break down, but we'd talk about for hours. Yeah, and then once porn is taken to its logical conclusion, once there's no reason in the film for them to shoot with any level of quality, and all that's left is the porn, we just see utter depravity. And so I just, yeah, to me, this film is saying, like, yes, there was ambition and there was heart, and that is something worth admiring, but the actual genre or medium of pornography is inherently destructive.
I think to better encapsulate my interpretation of the film, I think it is an examination of like the fine line between art and like prostitution, liberation through art versus shame of like pouring out yourself. You know, I am pro sex work. I'm not bashing sex work in any way, but I think, yeah, I think the best encapsulation of that is the scene after. So Dirk is like spiraling. He's really into the drugs at this point later in the film. And Jack is attempting to make a show with Roller Girl in this limo where they pull a random guy off the street and let him have sex with her, and it becomes, oh god, that scene is so awful. It becomes this, well, the guy is someone that Roller Girl knows, and he even recognizes her at a certain point. They sort of start having sex, and then, you know, he's not an actor, which I also think that whole sequence does prove my point a little bit, because yeah, it's not just about like capturing people having sex on camera. There's an art to it. There's an art to being a porn star. At least that is what the film is saying. Because Jack is like, come on, you can't do it like he's trying to give him direction.
Yeah, he's trying to direct her. Or direct him.
Direct him, yeah. She knows what she's doing. Yeah, and so, you know, and it doesn't work. They end up kicking him out and all kind of beat him up, which rightfully so. That guy sucks. It's this whole encapsulation of what I'm talking about, of this like fine line between when it just becomes like trying to make something smutty versus trying to make something that has like some sort of merit that makes you feel something more than just horny. So I don't know. I mean, I think, and I think you could also interpret Buck's character, Don Cheadle's character, in a different way. Like, yes, he is trying to leave the porn industry, working in it, by starting his own hi-fi stereo company. Love that character. My God. And yes, he does ultimately get out of it, not through, he struggles a lot to get out of it because
right,
he is in the industry. And I recognize that. You have that scene at the bank where they're literally not going to give him a loan because he works in the porn industry. Though you could argue they're just finding a way to make it not about race, and especially an interracial couple, since his white wife is there. I do think it was probably a combination of things, if anything. Like, I would wonder if a white man went into that same bank, would he be able to get a loan even if he worked at the porn industry? I think yes, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, I mean, at the end, yes, he does, through stealing the money that one guy tried to steal from the donut shop.
Although you get that money once you've been through that. I
agree. I was like, please take that money, because take that money and leave, because you will somehow be implicated in this. Again, this is the 80s. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But no, at the end, who is filming his commercial? It's his porn family. And I suppose you could interpret that as he can't get anyone else to film it for him because of his background, sure. But I interpreted it as he benefited from it, ultimately. And it's him keeping a healthy distance, once again, starting a family, starting his own business, leaving it, but not really fully leaving it. And even leaning into his porn background by saying, come inside at the end. So funny. Yeah, so I don't know. That's so funny. I didn't even entertain the thought that it was just anti-porn.
So you bring up this digitally recorded sequence with Roller Girl on the Street. But to me, that was the consequence of that antecedent I talked about earlier. This Paul Thomas Anderson is willing to admit, like, that this man is trying, and he says, you know, that he wants them in the seats after they masturbate. But this is his clientele. Later in the movie, we meet a person that is into his films, and he's not going to take direction. He doesn't see any artistic merit. He just wants to, you know, treat Roller Girl like an object and have sex. And I think that is the conclusion. To me, the film was saying throughout its whole runtime, but especially by that, you know, it doesn't really matter if you want to have this artistic merit. Like, that is admirable that you're trying, but ultimately, look what you've contributed to.
Okay. I will say I don't know if it's fair to judge the artistic merit of his films based on what one viewer thinks about them.
I mean, then I think we need to get someone else in the film. Like, I don't think we ever get a sequence of porn, you know. We hear Dirk at one point talking about that you've saved our marriage in a very funny sequence, but it's meant to be funny. Like, we don't ever see people truly with their lives made better through porn, except in that they can find family because they've been cast out from their own. And that is a beautiful element of the film that I'm sure we'll talk more about. But yeah, if the film was not anti-porn, then it fails, because I think the through line is setting up these high in the sky hopes and just watching them crumble because you're in an industry that doesn't value that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think my interpretation maybe fully lines up with everything in it. Yeah, well, I guess moving on from that then, and I would like to discuss more about this kind of chosen family of people.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful mostly.
There are still some very messed up dynamics like I referred to earlier, but I'm glad that, you know, these people don't succumb to their misery in the way that we see it can happen in the film.
Yeah. Well, and so obviously Eddie's home life, he has a very abusive mother and a very submissive father, which I did kind of think like, oh, these are kind of like the opposite of porn stereotypes that he has at home. And then, you know, he leaves everything behind, and Jack kind of becomes his dad, and Maggie / Amber Waves kind of becomes his mom.
Right.
And even, you know, we realize that, oh, Roller Girl lives at Jack's house as well. And you have that sweet but also kind of chaotic scene where Amber Waves and Roller Girl are doing coke, meth. At this point, it could be either. I think it was coke because there was a lot of it. But they're doing coke together. They're doing drugs together. And they have this beautiful moment, maybe fueled by drugs, where Roller Girl's like, "You're my mom, right? Like, I love you." And Amber Waves is like, yeah, you're my daughter. I love you. And, you know, that's something clearly we don't see Roller Girl's home life or former home life, but you assume it was not good. And there is something pretty lovely about these kind of misfits finding a community. Unfortunately, it does lead them down some dark paths. Freud would have loved this movie because of course Eddie's first scene as Dirk Diggler that he shoots is with Amber Waves at the behest of Jack. Jack actually switches up who is going to be with Amber at the last second. He wants it to be Dirk, which I don't know quite how to clock that, other than that he sees that he is talented and thinks that Amber is also talented, because then they have, you know, they shoot this sex scene, and initially she says like, oh, she wants him to come on her tit, and he's like, okay, yes, and oh, consent king. Also, side note, Dirk in the beginning,
at first,
I said in the
I guess that's just another element though that I would think it's corrupted.
Yeah. No, it does add points to your argument that initially, before he is a true professional, before he's been around the block a bunch, he's very considerate, very much asking her permission and making sure that she is comfortable in this scene, which is lovely. And then flash forward later, he kind of does not care at all. And there's kind of a bit with a character that he ends up developing where initially he's like, yeah, I don't think it's good to hit women. Like, I don't think that's someone we should be rooting for. And then later, he very much hits a woman. So in the context of a scene, but still his character, I guess, hits a woman.
Right.
But yeah, and then, going back to the Amber Waves scene, she ends up saying like, yes, I want you to come inside me. And it's this like super intimate moment. And I would argue what Jack is looking for in trying to make like true film, because that's a really nice, tender, like genuine moment that he has captured on film. And at the same time is probably upsetting, worrying to him a little bit, because he has heard his wife instruct him otherwise earlier, and clearly it's her choice and what she wants as a person, not even as a performer in that moment. And so yeah, I love that is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, because of all these underlying dynamics.
No, yeah, I agree. It's an absolutely incredible sequence. It's a couple things to point out. That is really our only long sex scene in a film about filming sex, I guess. So I think that is interesting that, the one long scene we get is passionate and intimate and not just lustful. This is my, I don't know, nth viewing of this film. This is one of my all-timers. I think this is a brilliant film. I picked up on something I have never noticed before. And once I thought about it, I mean, just, yeah, I guess there wasn't even confusion, but we never once see Jack and Amber have sex, or maybe even head toward it. Like, there's no, I don't know that we ever see him in a proper intimate setting besides film it, which I thought was interesting. And there's, full disclosure, of course there's a chance here that this was a Burt Reynolds decision. He famously was very hesitant to do the film and regretted doing it. But
boo.
Did you boo him?
I did boo him. I think that's classless.
You can't boo
to
Burt
do a
Reynolds.
film, and then I can, and I have.
He's dead. Poor guy.
Well, then he's not gonna hear this.
Well, okay, but assuming that it is part of the script, and I have to assume it is, because there are several scenes that are at least vulgar that he's a part of. It's not like the film, anytime he's not on camera there's sex, and then when he is, suddenly it's a G-rated film. So assuming that it is in the script that way, I think it's an interesting element to the character that he doesn't actually have sex, or at least we never see it, despite his life revolving around it.
He's like a retired racehorse.
Right. That's a perfect way to describe what it feels like to watch the man in this film. And I thought that lent itself to that scene, because maybe that type of intimacy isn't something that she's been experiencing. I don't know.
Yeah, that is, yeah, I don't think I consciously registered that they'd never actually had sex. I mean, he's very tender toward her.
Yes, absolutely.
Calls her the most beautiful woman in the world, and I mean, it's Julianne Moore, so he's right. She's stunning in this movie, especially. But yeah, I think potentially maybe she is missing true intimacy, and I would be interested to know. I kind of wish now that there was a little more exploration of that, because I wonder if it's for him like, well, she's got to like save the juice kind of deal, like save that for the camera, or what. Yeah, why they don't seem to have a particularly physical relationship. And he does, I not fully remembering how the film's plot goes. I was kind of, after that one scene with Dirk and Amber, I was kind of like, oh, I wonder if there's going to be like resentment that starts building up with Jack. But it really doesn't happen.
No.
He really, and I think maybe this is one point toward my interpretation.
Okay.
He keeps it pretty professional, I think, for the most part.
I don't disagree with you that the film is, I keep using the word admiring, at least, of this man's ambitions. So I think that would fit to that piece of it.
Yeah.
That he is able to fully separate, work and play.
And I think he is maybe on some level aware that their relationship is more mother-son, even though there's also a physical romantic element to it. And clearly she is deeply missing her son. You have that one scene of, I think it's Luis Guzman answers the telephone and says like, "Oh, is there a Maggie here?" There a Maggie,
Right.
and no one knows her as Maggie, so no one's saying that. And she misses, what was maybe her one chance to kind of start reconnecting to her son, and that it just breaks my heart. So I think it could be argued too that Jack allows it to happen because he knows that she needs that. She needs some sort of surrogate child to take care of and be a mother to. And, if they have great on-screen chemistry, then that's just a plus for his filmmaking. Philip Seymour Hoffman in this plays Scotty, who is not particularly a main character.
But makes a mark. Yeah,
of course he does. That's the nature of Hoffman as an actor. He's always going to steal any scene he's in. I think my favorite scene where he really drew my eye is when Dirk is having his final blow up before he leaves Jack's employ. And, they're going at it. He doesn't say a word, but Scotty's in the background just like kind of holding himself wide mouthed. And I just couldn't keep my eye off of him. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing about Scotty as a character is that he's clearly from the start very gay coded and then just is gay. And I think I keep going back and forth about how I feel about this film's about this film's thoughts and comments on gay people. Because you have Scotty, and then kind of the only other reference to being gay is when Dirk is desperate for money for drugs and ends up getting in a car with someone who is supposedly going to pay him to masturbate in front of him, and then it turns out that it's actually like guys who want to beat up gay guys, and they call him the F slur. And those are kind of the two mentions of queer people at all, which I think is interesting. And I don't know the prevalence of, I assume even in the 70s and 80s that gay people were in the porn industry. But the fact that it kind of doesn't go beyond that, and even comparing it to honestly more mentions of being gay or being queer in the Dirk Diggler Story, his short film that we watched last week. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more, either a little bit more or less of commentary, because it kind of felt like everything in its time, obviously, and it's the 90s, so we're still getting there in the mainstream with queer folks, and still I kind of wish that it wasn't just like Scotty is our main representation for a gay man in this, because he is kind of a creep. Even though I love him. I love Scotty. Well, he's kind of a creep, I think, in the scene where he throws himself at Dirk.
Well, so that's the key scene to talk about. Everything you're saying was very valuable. So Scotty's plotline culminates in this scene at the New Year's Eve party where he is super. I think he is super drunk. He says it, but that could be a lie. But I think he is. And he's been trying to feel out Dirk the whole movie and see if his feelings for Dirk are reciprocated. And so, finally he goes for it and kisses Dirk, and then the kiss is rejected. But I don't think it's creepy in that, like, he doesn't keep it going or anything. Like, he doesn't keep trying. Like, once it's rejected, he stops. Maybe, yes, he could have asked instead of attempting to kiss Dirk. But I think he genuinely thought that just the only barrier between them was that they weren't acting upon it. And this time watching the movie, I'd totally either forgotten or not been aware of this before. Mark Wahlberg, which this kind of surprised me given who Mark Wahlberg is out of the film, plays that scene, and maybe I assume he was directed to do so, but he plays it as that he is also into Scotty. Did you at least see it the same way?
No.
Okay, so previously I've read it just that he doesn't feel the same way. He's not gay. I'd have to go line by line again. I should have written it all down, I guess. But he never actually like says no in any real way. He keeps saying like, "Oh, let's go inside. Let's get back to the party. You know, I love you too." All these things, and when you look at what's on Dirk's face, I think the scene is played that Dirk is also into Scotty, but can't act upon it because he's, you know, the person he is in his porn character.
I will say I did register that he doesn't really ever say no. It's a lot of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm sure that character also probably enjoys to some extent that, like, he is so that Scotty is so obviously into him, you know, to the point where as soon as he shows up to that party in an orange like driving jacket, you know, like he has the same car as him, or you know, a similar car.
Sure.
And I think that's very flattering, and I can see, I mean, I like that. I like that interpretation, and now I do want to go back and rewatch the scene, because then I think the character of Dirk Diggler and the kind of archetypes that he plays that we see in porn are you know, obviously womanizer and like strong action hero and leading man, you know, and that's not, I can see a kind of calculation maybe happening of like, well, I can't start to get that reputation. Kind of like, you know, when actors choose to turn down roles because they don't want to be pigeonholed. He's maybe turning down Scotty because he doesn't want to be pigeonholed into gay porn, which I don't think Eddie even makes because we never see it.
Which, yeah, so it's interesting because when we looked at the Dirk Diggler story, I don't know, or when we watched the Dirk Diggler story, I looked into it. I'm not sure if you did as well, but this is that which became Boogie Nights, which then a lot of details changed from that first short film. But that short film is based on a real person. Did we talk about this at all?
I don't think we did. That's maybe brief. Maybe you briefly mentioned it.
Okay, so John Holmes was a porn star, and that man did a lot of gay scenes, at least from what I'm reading. So we get that in the original Dirk Diggler story, and then in this film, we don't have that anymore. There's no, the character Dirk in Boogie Nights does not do any gay scenes. So it's a 90s blockbuster. I don't know how much is calculated and how much is not, but it doesn't surprise me that our character is no longer gay, given, you know, the budget this had, and that it's still a newer director. His first film, not a hit. So I think it is then intentional that once we do get this scene where he's confessed to, if you read between the lines, I think he does feel the same way. But to serve this plot, I think he doesn't act upon it, which is interesting. As to the other scene you brought up, yes, it is horrible. But I think, yeah, we see a number of the people that interact with sex workers in this movie, and none of them are great. I think that was just yet another scene of it. Oh, I wanted to point out in between there that yes, Dirk's first job is that he masturbates for men. That's when Jack finds him,
and he washes dishes.
Right,
and he works at a car wash. I'm pretty sure he also says that. That's his other job.
Okay, I meant his first job within sex work. I all that to say, I think the character is meant to be bisexual, but he doesn't embrace that element of himself for fear of getting marginalized and losing out on part of his persona.
Yeah, well, and especially his one thing, his one gift, I think probably furthers that desire, the fact that he has such a large penis. Yeah, I think, you know, he probably wants to be seen as a man, a very manly man, and at that time especially, gay men not considered manly. Yeah, I feel like I agree with that interpretation, and especially, yeah, having seen the source material. And I definitely also thought that was probably like a call that the studio made to not have the main character of this film be a bisexual man, and to change. I assume John C. Reilly is playing, you know, his, if we're thinking of this as so clearly based on Dirk Diggler's story, in the Dirk Diggler story, Dirk has, you know, a best friend who is bisexual, and they've done films together in that mockumentary, and then you kind of transpose that. You think it's John C. Reilly, and to me, instead of making him gay or bisexual, they just made him kind of dumb and good at magic.
Yeah, I think that character in the Dirk Diggler story is split up between Reed, who you're mentioning, John C. Reilly's character, and Scotty. I think his role is fulfilled by those two characters together.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Yeah, which we haven't talked about Reed at all.
I mean, there's so many characters in this movie. Like, well, we're heading toward Magnolia, so I guess I should be grateful.
Again, John C. Reilly being just typecast as a big dummy because he clearly wants to be Dirk's mentor in the beginning. They have this kind of brotherly dynamic, and clearly Dirk is meant to be the star and not him. He asks Dirk when they first meet, "Have you seen Star Wars?" And Dirk says, "Yeah, like 1,000 times." And Reed says, "Oh, people have told me that I look like Han Solo." And that's just so good, and just establishes the character so well. There's another great scene where the two of them are in a hot tub, and John C. Reilly sort of it's not a freestyle because I think
it's a poem reading.
It's a poem reading, just like by heart, I guess, because he just remembers his own words so perfectly, and it's truly awful. And of course, Dirk says it's good, and yeah, you see that he's kind of bad. He's not particularly successful. It doesn't appear in porn, but the one, if Dirk's one thing that he was given, one gift that he was given is his large dick, then Reed's is his genuine talent at close-up magic.
It's so good.
Good, and he becomes a musician.
He does.
So youth fades, but magic doesn't.
Yeah, two things that to point out from that we haven't talked about yet, and we're surely gonna miss stuff because this is just such a full movie. The movie is very funny. We haven't really talked about that, but there is so much comedy in this movie that just lands. My absolute favorite bit is when Macy's character gets his words backwards when he's talking about his wife having sex in the parking lot.
Yes.
Just so funny. I wouldn't do the line justice, so I'm not even gonna try. But it's perfect, and yeah, and even in the most tragic moments, there's still some humor just due to just these extreme circumstances that these characters are in, and the surrealness of it all. And I think that tone management is just impeccable here. So I did want to point that out.
Definitely, and it it's the thing that stood out the most for me in the short film Dirk Diggler was just his talent for writing comedy. Yeah, I mean, Saturday Night Beaver is a line in one of the porn films. So yes. Good. So
that scene, which that scene where he's accepting the adult film award. I read a funny anecdote online that they had not told the extras what they were performing for, and originally it's actually toned down in the film, but the woman that goes up there and yells like, "I'm excited to shoot scenes with Dirk" or whatever, originally the line was much more crass. I don't remember the exact wording, but something about, I'd want him inside me, that kind of thing. And just all these extras got up and left because they were like, this isn't what I agreed to. Then they had to delay shooting while they got more extras. And told them what they were doing this time. Yeah, so we talked about all the second thing I want to talk about was all those different characters. A couple of them that we didn't talk about, and we can kind of briefly go through them. There's the Colonel, who has perhaps the most awful, depraved section of this film.
Definitely.
He is a porn producer, and then we kind of check in with him on occasion, just as he donates finances maybe to Jack's projects, and then he ends up being arrested for child pornography, and then and attempting to assault a minor. And then we check back in with him in prison during like a final sequence, and he's having a rough time. So there's that whole thing. There's Maurice, who came up briefly. He's the club owner. He gets a bigger club by the end, but they still don't spell his name right. He does get to be in one of the films. I was excited for him. I don't think he actually gets to do anything, but he is a bartender in that one film.
Yeah.
And then the big scene that we have not talked about is this turn toward the end. I I guess it's not a brand new act or anything, because it's really only one scene, but it's very long, very intense. It is this drug deal.
This is the most Tarantino he gets in this movie.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's very Pulp Fiction. We have Dirk and Reed partnered with. Do you know the other guy's name?
I certainly don't.
That's okay. I don't either. Anyway, other character, and they're doing more or less, the one last job trope to get a lot of money after Dirk's various ideas have not gotten him rich, especially that singing career that did not pan out. And this whole sequence is just framed so beautifully. There's this guy that's just throwing firecrackers around the entire room the whole time, and their fear is that a gun's gonna go off, so they're jumping every time that this is happening. There's the guy they're interacting with is clearly not stable, and they're trying to scam him, although they're not even in on the scam. It's just so intense. It's not the deepest scene or anything, but I had to make sure we at least mentioned it here.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the best scenes of the movie, and Alfred Molina it's another, like, he has that one scene and it's so damn memorable. Weirdly, even though I don't know the guy's name that they're with, that he is like friends with, I do know the firework guy's name. His name is Cosmo. It's his rock bottom, right? Like, I think you could argue maybe the truck scene is his rock bottom, but I think it's when he just realizes, like, oh yeah, I need to clean this up. Well, it's what he goes to Jack afterwards. He shows up at Jack's house,
right,
and says, help me. So yeah, it's his rock bottom, and he gets clean, I guess, after that, and is back to shooting. So that's cool. Yeah,
it's the level of anxiety that scene provokes. If you haven't seen Boogie Nights in a while, for any other reason, watch it, because it's great. But yeah, just I'd forgotten how much I love that scene, and how much of the ending kind of rides on it. It essentially is the climax of the film.
Definitely.
Yeah, so good. Finally, after that, there is reconciliation. We see our found family together again, and we get, which I guess to talk about that final reveal, we should mention there's a fantastic choice throughout the entire movie to not show the penis, to show reactions to the penis.
It's like the goal. It's like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction, except we do get to see what's inside.
Right. We get, I mean, that shot at the party of the Colonel looking at it for a very long time was so funny. It was long enough that I laughed, stopped laughing, laughed again.
Yeah, well, when Dirk's first on film and he disrobes for the first time, and you have these cameramen, seasoned porn cameramen there, and even they are like you see this great reaction shot of them slowly realizing, like, oh, this is crazy to behold.
Yeah, so we get so many great shots throughout the film. I think it's a wonderful choice to delay that gratification from the audience, pun not intended, to finally end on that zinger shot, which I have no idea, I've never talked to the man, but based on his later films, I don't think he would end the film like this anymore. But I'm so glad he made this in his 20s, because it is a perfect zinger to this movie, that you finally see the penis in all its largeness. And then the film ends, and you're left with two people talking about it on a podcast. So there you go.
Yeah, I guess briefly going back to I don't know how I feel about the "Where Are They Now" montage, including the pedophile, including the Colonel. But I do, I mean, it goes to your point of, and maybe also mine, showing what happens in the worst case scenario if you get to, not that I'm saying that the porn caused him to become a pedophile. I think he probably was a pedophile and got into porn, but yeah, that kind of threw me off a little bit. I don't know if I included that.
Well, I guess I don't know, from my reading, I don't know that the film, I get what you're saying, but I don't know that the film wasn't saying that it was a direct cause.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it was, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I think ultimately, other than that short sequence within the montage, it's kind of a very weird, big, happy family. You know, you get to see Don Cheadle and his new baby. And yeah, they're all kind of back together again. It's a happy end. This is why I think overall my interpretation is that it's more about the fine line that you walk in an industry like that, because it ends so happily. Because I do think that there was definitely room for it to end how the short film ended, where Dirk dies of an overdose, and it didn't. He chose to end it happily. And yes, some of the happy endings are them more walking away. But Roller Girl still lives in the house and is, I'm assuming, while getting her GED, still making porn. So I don't know. I think the ending really is what sealed my thoughts on the message of the movie.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that. I get what you're saying. But the people that were fully depraved have horrible endings. One doesn't even make it to the end. I guess it's not his fault that he's in a depraved life, but the characters that find happiness seem to find it outside the industry, and everyone ending happy is because they found each other within it, not anything from the industry itself.
But they're going back to using film.
Right.
They're making art.
Again, I do not dismiss that the film, I mean, there's a great line that we've kind of talked about where he says, like, true filmmakers. He says something about, you know, true artistry being on film, which I thought was very funny, that Paul Thomas Anderson, a director that only shoots on film, was writing and filming the scene about that. So yes, I fully concede the admiration for the goal at creating art, and I don't think the film is saying he's a bad person for trying to do that. I think the film is saying that he, you know, did not succeed.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have to ask, of course, would you recommend the film?
Oh, absolutely. Anyone. Yeah. Watch it.
Me too.
Everyone watch it.
It's so good.
I'm just aghast that he made this at the age that I am now, because I certainly don't have the ability. That's all.
I just was shocked that it was 1 year later, because watching Heart 8 only a week before, this thing is so good compared to a fine film. Boogie Nights is funny, it is sad, it is brilliantly made, and has so much to say about humanity, and it's accessible. Like I literally, everyone. Unless you just cannot handle nudity.
Yeah, nudity and sex, because it's that.
They're integral to the plot, I guess. But honestly, the film could have gone way harder if it wanted to, and it doesn't. So maybe even if you're a little squeamish, who knows?
Well, next week we get the privilege of discussing Magnolia, and I get the privilege of watching it for the first time somehow. But in the meantime, you can follow us on both TikTok and Instagram at retro_sin.
And he is
CIN.
Popping off on TikTok. I've posted 2 videos that got a collective, 4 likes and a sigh of disappointment. And Annie posted one that has 2,000 views and favorites and comments. And join the discussion.
And when I tell you that was my first interaction on TikTok ever in my life, that is not an exaggeration. So I don't know what I'm doing, but check us out. Ryan's content is just as good as mine. So, and if you want to read our Letterboxd, I'm at Annie Morell. You can find the spelling of my last name in our show notes.
Yeah, it says, the podcast says, created by Ryan Saylor and Annie Morell. So it's right there. You can find it.
It's right there.
Anyway, I'm at Ryan Loves Film. If you want to send us an email, we have the email retrospectivecinemapodcast@gmail.com. Any and all comments you send us might be read on a future episode, and we would love to talk about it. So please, if you agree with us, disagree with us, if you have one interpretation or the other of Boogie Nights, let us know. Because, clearly we...
Are you Team Annie or Team Ryan? Pick a side.
Clearly we love talking about this film. Make us talk about it more. Until next time, you want the honors?
Happy watching.